So people, when they might be making public lectures or maybe they're debating, people have specific strategies they use to win people over. They try to show that, oh, look, they destroyed this person, or look at this, they definitively proved this point. This might be different false teachers, maybe different apologists of different religions, different worldviews, or whatever it may be. They have different strategies that they do have. And I'm not saying that everyone among these groups are liars like that, but you're going to find some of those liars among them. So I'm going to try to highlight in this video some of the strategies that they may use. I might know this from experience. I might have observed this in other debates, other discussions, but whatever it may be, I kind of learned this. And one of probably the main one is learning. You're not going to be able to really deceive anyone if you don't know anything yourself, right? So a lot of them may try to learn the Bible and Christian theology to try to use it against Christians or Christian history. Like, oh, look at this. There's this quote from this church father. It seems to deny the Trinity. I'm going to take this quote and use it a lot to show that, hey, look, they didn't believe the Trinity or things like that. Or maybe they might use the Crusades. You never know. They're going to learn different things to try to use it against Christians and learn about their own position and how to defend it. So how do we counter this, right? How do we counter this? The simple thing really is to learn yourself, right? You don't need to be a philosopher or a historian, but I think there's a call to Christians to know the Bible, right? If you had no knowledge of the Bible, then you won't be able to really defend it. I'm not saying to be, know every passage like the back of your hand, but at the very least, you might want to know what the Trinity is and what are the general references that prove the Trinity or things like that, right? Have a general knowledge. That should be something that Christians strive for. And part of this comes with having an audience that are, they don't know as much. So they might not, whether it's people that don't fact check things or whether it's people that they just don't know about where to look or whatever, they might be deceived and buy into it. So that is a part of it. And I don't think you're ever going to stop really studying and really learning. So strive to keep doing that. I know I keep striving to learn more, learn what other things people say against Christianity. I try to learn these things and I just keep going, right? I'm just going to keep going. I don't think I'm ever going to stop learning. I don't think you ever really stop learning. So that's something Christians should pursue, to keep learning. Now, another strategy that I've noticed is not allowing you to clarify anything. Sometimes I see people do that. They don't let you clarify your position. They kind of force it into a false dilemma of yes or no, and they don't let you clarify your yes or no. Or maybe you don't have a yes or no. Maybe it's neither, right? That's something I kind of see sometimes, and it's a very strange strategy. So I just don't know about it. I don't know why people go there. For example, there was what's his name? Nick Norelli, I believe, from the YouTube channel Fearless Truth. He went and debated Orthodox Muslim Libiano on a TikTok live. And it really seemed like Libiano was kind of making that false dilemma where he was kind of trying to ask him, can you say Jesus is unbegotten without clarifying? And forcing him to say either yes or no. And I'm assuming that if Nick said yes, then he was going to say, oh, so then Jesus is unbegotten, perfect. Right? But Nick kept saying only if you're referring to the divine essence, not the hypostasis or the person, right? You can't say the person of Christ is unbegotten. You can say maybe the essence is unbegotten, sure, but the person, he's not unbegotten. He's begotten of the Father. He was trying to clarify that over and over again, and Libiano was like, no, stop. Yes or no, is Jesus unbegotten? Right? And that is an improper way to discuss. It's deceitful to not let people clarify their beliefs. And maybe Christians do that too. I'm not saying that they don't, but I think Christians should be aware of this to, number one, not do this, right? Don't let people not clarify your beliefs. You should be willing to be open and listen what they have to say. And at the same time, be aware that people do this. Some people try to kind of force you not to clarify your beliefs. In that situation, point out what they're doing, right? Hey, you are using this strategy here to try to trap me. You're forcing me not to clarify what I believe. And some of these discussions you're just going to have to walk away from. Right? There's no point in pursuing it. Another strategy I've seen is kind of like trying to be intimidating, right? And there's different ways they might do this. Like some people might learn Hebrew or Greek and learn to pronounce the words, or maybe memorize. You know, I basically memorize the only verse in the Greek New Testament I've memorized is John 1:1. But you know, maybe I might use that, you know, to try to intimidate a Unitarian. All right, let's go to John 1:1. Energe in hologos, kai hologos en prostontheon, kai theos en hologos. Right, I say that, and that might intimidate a few, not all Unitarians. There are Unitarians that know Greek, but some Unitarians don't really know any Greek. So that could be a strategy seen as trying to intimidate them with my knowledge, or just being loud or pretty rude. Right, that can be used as an intimidation tactic, especially with people that are more soft spoken. I don't think I'm really that soft spoken on camera, but I am more laid back. And I know there are some people that kind of speak softly. They're more timid, and someone might use that as a strategy, like yelling. I know a lot of people like kind of do that, yell like at the top of their voice, "Sir, answer the question. Is this?" You know, you might see something like that, or you might see talking fast is another one, right? Talking fast. I've seen this before. I believe there's a Muslim by the name of Ayan the Servant, or you can maybe say even like Ben Shapiro. People do that, right? They talk really fast to try to be intimidating. Sometimes maybe I do it, and I just want to say that for a record, I'm sorry if I do. Sometimes I'm just naturally speaking too fast, so that might be an issue on my part. I'm sorry if that. It's not meant to be look at me, I'm so smart, I can talk so fast and make these points really fast. You know, that's just on me, right? If I do that, but I know some people genuinely do that as a strategy, just kind of sounds smart, like, oh, look at all these points I'm firing really fast. I must have destroyed you. And here's the issue with that. When you do that, people can't hear what you're saying. So the first thing you might hear someone say is, and then you're gonna go, oh, ha, you see, look, he doesn't have an answer. But it's like, dude, you just fired points really fast. It's hard for them to hear what you even said. They might not know what you even just said because you spoke really fast. And that's a strategy, right? Well, he can't hear what I say, so then he can't refute me. It's not a genuine way to discuss with people. Maybe some people speak just naturally fast. Like sometimes I speak a little naturally fast if I can gather my thoughts well. Not all the time. I don't always speak very well. But if I can gather my thoughts well, then I can fire out a point really quick. So some people are just really good at talking fast. That's just their natural thing, and that's fine, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're intentionally doing it to manipulate the discussion, then that's just deceitful, man. And you got to watch out for that. If you're talking to someone like that, tell them to slow down. And if they're not willing to not compromise, or if they're not willing to try to work with you, or if they're saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's just how I talk," or whatever. If they're not willing to work with you there, then just forget it. It's not worth discussing, right? It's not worth that discussion. It's a waste of time. That person doesn't want to have a real discussion. They don't care about anything. They just want to present themselves as a super smart person. Watch out for people that are looking for YouTube clips, right? Some people might have a camera in their hand in public, or maybe on a live stream, they might be recording. They're looking for clips to gain viewers. Not everyone does that, right? Not everyone does that. Some people record just to kind of present. I know I try to record my discussions as much as I can. I haven't recorded every discussion I've had. I've had a few discussions off camera, but I try to record my discussions not to get views, not to seem popular. I like to present my discussions out in public so that people can critique me, can learn from it. It might just be an entertaining video, and I like having those discussions, and I like to rewatch them sometimes to kind of critique myself and see, okay, what can I do differently? I know I learned that I want to do discussions one-on-one from now on. I don't want people joining up, maybe in a different setting, maybe if it's like an open panel, but as of right now, I want to keep it like, one-on-one. Another strategy, and you're probably going to have to learn a little logic for this, but another strategy that's used is fallacies, right? People might use logical fallacies or just invalid or unsound arguments to begin with to try to prove their point. And basically, the only way to attack that is just kind of familiarize yourself with some of the logical fallacies and maybe learn a little logic to kind of identify that. So, for example, someone might say, well, look at you, you're uneducated. Okay, that's the ad hominem fallacy. Oh, either Jesus has a human nature or has a divine nature. False dilemma. He has a human and divine nature. And Christians themselves should also be careful of committing fallacies. Like some Christians might commit the circular reasoning fallacy when they say the Bible's true because it claims to be true. That's a circular argument. That is a fallacy. We shouldn't make arguments like that. So you got to be careful, right? People might use those fallacious arguments to try to deceive people and try to refute you. You got to watch out for that. Another strategy I've noticed is kind of running from the point. I had a recent discussion with someone named Logical Analyst. I'm not going to say that he was completely running away. I don't want to be uncharitable like that. I don't think he was trying to run away, but I do think during the discussion he didn't properly address every one of my points. So, for example, he said that Muhammad worshipped the God of Abraham. Well, okay. I went to Genesis 18 to show that yes, Yahweh appears in the flesh. And I think when we got to verses 13 to 14, that's when I really got him to kind of concede. But then he kind of went to another verse instead of saying like, okay, you got me there or whatever. I don't know. You can rewatch it and check, see for yourself, see what you think. But as far as I can see, he didn't seem to really be able to answer that. So he moved to another point without really mentioning like, okay, you have me there or whatever. He did say, I believe he did say fine, but that was kind of vague. I don't know what he meant by fine. I don't know if he was conceding or what. Maybe he was conceding there. I'm not sure. But anyways, it's he was doing it very moderately. It wasn't like he was on some other people because that was a genuine discussion, right? That was a genuine discussion. I loved it. It was a genuine discussion. And that's how I like my discussions. I like to go point by point, not here's these 5 points, address them all or you're wrong. I don't like that. Right. I try not to do that. So when specifically debating the Bible or the Quran or whatever passages we're looking at, I like to go passage by passage or verse by verse or whatever, one at a time. Not here are these 4 passages. I might in a video I might present multiple passages, but in a live discussion I will go one at a time, or I might present a few and then we'll go one by one. To kind of summarize, here's my arguments for these passages. Let's pick one and stay in this one and then go to the next. Things like that, going one by one, and that flows the discussion very well. We're having genuine dialogue and disagreeing, and we're able to talk about it, and it's structured, and we can hear what the other person is saying. But, some people might run away to another passage, so then you're not addressing the argument. The last strategy I want to talk about here is making your opponent angry. I notice some people try to do that. They try to on purpose. I know it's from the way they come off, it seems to be on purpose. I'm not saying everyone does this. Maybe some people just are naturally obnoxious, or maybe it's just the way they talk sometimes comes off as, arrogant or obnoxious. Maybe some people just don't realize that. So fine. That's fine. I can give them the benefit of the doubt. But I know that some of those people are on purpose trying to provoke a reaction. I think one of them, I think personally, is Daniel Hakikachu. Just from the way he comes off, and maybe that's just how he is. Maybe that's just how he is. But sometimes he seems to come off like that, trying to provoke a reaction, and then when he gets a reaction, then he uses that and goes out to his fans and say, look at this guy, look at the way he acts. But it's like you provoked a reaction, right? You were the one who started that in the first place, and anybody can do that, right? So I think the best way to combat that is learning patience. Biblically, patience is important. The Bible says a lot about wrath and patience, and maybe I should make a video on that. Honestly, patience, that's a great topic, man. Wow, I gotta get a video on that, man. Not I just gave myself an idea. Let me know in the comments if you want to see a video on patience. Anyways, so yeah, people might do that. They might try to provoke a reaction by either talking to you with an attitude of that's arrogant, maybe insulting you, whatever they might do. They might use different strategies to try to provoke a reaction, and they're going to use that reaction against you. So if you're in a recorded discussion or in some sort of a public domain, whatever it may be, be aware of that. Right? Be aware of that. So that's it. That's pretty much a few strategies. This is not a comprehensive, exhaustive list of every excuse me, every strategy someone might use. But I think it's a general surface level. Hey, here's some of the things people might do that try to, make them win debates or make them win followers. Maybe some false teachers might employ some of these things And you got to watch out for this. Be on the look. Anyways, I think that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for tuning in. God bless you all, and goodbye.